In a post-apocalyptic world where humanity must coexist with zombies, the few remaining survivors must live in a state of alert, as they could be attacked at any moment. While crossing a ghost town, Daryl and Carol find themselves surrounded by a horde of zombies who have not eaten for several months. When they realize they have nowhere to go, the pair begin to think of an escape plan, and Daryl strikes the zombies while his partner tries to open the door of an abandoned building. During the battle against the zombies, Daryl buys time for Carol to break in, and as soon as the doors open, they both manage to save themselves. After breaking down the door of one of the apartments, the two friends walk into the living room and find the resident, who has turned into a zombie after eliminating himself. While the creature struggles, Daryl and Carol take the opportunity to loot the house, and are searching the closets when suddenly other zombies appear. When she realizes that her partner is being attacked, Carol quickly arms herself to defend him, but is surprised by the sudden appearance of a new monster. Determined to get rid of the creature, Carol uses a cylinder of liquid nitrogen to freeze it, while Daryl strikes the monster that is trying to devour her. During the attack, the zombie that was hanging from the chandelier manages to break free and also tries to devour Daryl, but ends up getting hit in the head with a wooden stake. After getting rid of the monsters, the two friends check the surroundings for an escape route, but soon realize that the building is surrounded. Therefore, they have no choice but to remain in the residence for a few more days. As there are several other apartments in that building, Daryl manages to gather some supplies, but he can't find much. When they realize that the food is about to run out, the pair decide to try their luck and agree to leave at dawn, as the zombies outside will not go away anytime soon. That night, in the early hours of the morning, Daryl and Carol hear a strange noise coming from the balcony and prepare for an attack. However, when they open the curtains, they come face to face with Julian and are surprised to discover that there is another survivor in that city. According to Julian, this is the first time in several years that he has interacted with other people, as he believed that the entire population of his country had been wiped out. After devouring the rabbits Julian brought for dinner, Carol and Daryl try to convince their new friend to return with them to the United States, and the man agrees to meet them at the docks at 10 a.m. at the agreed time. Julian rings the church bells to attract the zombies' attention, and the two friends find an opportunity to escape. That morning, the trio manages to reach the sailboat and begins their journey to America with the hope of starting a new life. As they move away from the continent, they see the zombies getting further and further away, and prepare to face the next 2 weeks of travel across the ocean. A few days later, the trio is caught in a storm in the middle of the night, and while trying to unfurl the sails, Julian is struck by the mast. Seeing the injured man, Carol rushes to help him up and tends to his wounds while Daryl tries to regain control of the boat. Following Julian's instructions, the team manages to weather the storm, and days later, finally reaches the beach. However, while walking along the beach looking for Julian, Carol discovers that her friend did not survive the journey. After his perishment, the man awakens as a zombie and is about to infect Carol when Daryl appears and attacks him. At that moment, he knocks Julian down and finishes him off with a blow from his blade, knowing that this is the only salvation for his friend. Before leaving, Daryl places Julian's body in the water so that he will be carried away by the ocean. The plan now is to repair the boat to continue the journey to Maine, but during the night Daryl sees a group of natives approaching. Quickly, the man puts out the fire and hides with Carol behind some rocks, hoping that those people won't find them. Luckily, the pair are not seen, but the boat is completely ransacked, and all their belongings are taken. In the morning, they both go out in search of food, and on the way they find a map that indicates their location. At that moment, they discover that they have ended up in Spain, which means they are still a long way from home. While walking through the forest, Daryl spots some nets full of zombies and comes to the conclusion that the natives have set traps everywhere. After the boat accident, Carol ended up injured, so the pair decide to take a break to rest before continuing their walk. In the morning, while his partner rests, Daryl goes out hunting and sees some guys on the road driving a pickup truck. Concerned, the man hurries back to camp, and when he gets there, he realizes that Carol has disappeared. After searching for a few minutes, Daryl finds his friend on the riverbank watching a couple kissing on the other side. Moved by the romantic scene, Carol reveals that she can't stop admiring them, as they remind her of her own youth. Then, the group of men that Daryl saw a few minutes ago appears, and the couple hides in the water. Even so, they end up being found, and Roberto risks himself to protect his girlfriend, but ends up being beaten. In addition to stealing all of the couple's belongings, the crazies decide to eliminate them, so Daryl decides to take action and uses his crossbow to eliminate the bandits. At that moment, the driver appears, and upon seeing the bodies of his companions, he tries to flee. Immediately, Daryl grabs a gun and goes after the fugitive, but is unable to catch him. When she realizes that Carol is injured, Justina offers them food and convinces her boyfriend to take them to the village where they came from. According to the young woman, her grandmother is a healer and can help them, but the villagers are not friendly to strangers. Upon arriving at the ruins of the city, Justina finds an old friend and asks her to open the gate so they can enter, as those Americans need help. As they walk through the city, Daryl and Carol receive several hostile looks, but when he discovers that this man saved his niece's life, Federico orders his men to lower their weapons. The man introduces himself as the mayor of Solaz Delmare and says they can stay in the city for only 2 days, as that is enough time for Carol to recover. In gratitude for Daryl saving his son's life, Antonio agrees to host the strangers in his home and provides them with tools so they can repair their boat. The next day, Guillermo Torres, the last descendant of the Spanish monarchy, visits the city and offers gifts to the residents. Once a year, the monarchs visit all the allied cities and choose a young woman to be taken to Alcazar. At that moment, Daryl understands why Roberto and Justina fled, as all those who oppose the future king are eliminated. After selecting the most beautiful young women in the city, Federico orders his men to place the names of each of them around the necks of small pigs. Through a race, these animals will decide which of the young women will be taken, as the name on the pig that finishes the race in first place will be the one chosen. At the end of the race, Alba discovers that she will have to leave her city, and Justina breathes a sigh of relief knowing that she will have another year ahead of her with Roberto. For the rest of the day, the whole town celebrates, except for Alba and her family, as they know they are about to be separated forever. At dusk, Federico organizes a banquet for all the residents, and during dinner, Carol questions why Federico agreed to hand over the young women in exchange for weapons and supposed protection. According to the mayor, the young women are being sent away to have a better future than they would have outside the capital, and the fact that they are separated from their families is a small price to pay when compared to the benefits that Solaz Delmare receives for joining the alliance. While sitting at the table, Daryl notices that the driver who managed to escape the day before is in town, along with Guillermo's henchmen. At that moment, Daryl gets up to go after him and realizes that the group is stealing the goods that the mayor received as a gift. So he decides to take action, and after ambushing the invaders, Daryl uses a sword to eliminate them. Finally, he pushes the driver into a cage full of zombies and watches his enemy being devoured. What he didn't realize was that those men were actually part of Guillermo's army, and when he realizes they have disappeared, the monarch sends a search party to look for them. The next morning, Daryl begins to gather the supplies he needs to continue his journey, and Roberto offers to help him repair his boat. However, to ensure that they will get all the parts needed to repair the boat, the young man decides to ask for help from Valentina, a woman who spent 30 years of her life commanding cruises around the world. After briefly assessing the damage to the boat, Valentina says that major repairs will be needed before the vessel can sail again. However, she is willing to help him as long as Daryl promises to take Roberto and Justina with him to the United States. Knowing that there is no other way to leave that country, Daryl decides to accept the deal and accompanies Roberto to a boat graveyard to pick up some parts that need to be replaced on his vessel. Suddenly, a zombie approaches and emerges from the water to attack them. After destroying the monster's head, Daryl returns to the beach and realizes that there are several other zombies creatures in the vicinity. While Roberto picks up the items they went to retrieve, Daryl starts shooting at the creatures, but ends up running out of ammunition. In an attempt to keep the enemies away, the survivor uses an anchor to hit them, and then manages to prevent Roberto from being infected by the other zombies that were hiding underwater. While Roberto tries to repair the boat to leave the country with his wife, Justina discovers that her uncle cheated so that she would not be taken to Alcazar. Every year, Federico removed the ribbon with his niece's name from the pig's neck and replaced it with another name so that she would not have to leave the city. Upon discovering the truth, Justina feels guilty, and to try to make up for her uncle's mistake, she offers to leave in Alba's place, as she knows that the girl is very close to her mother. The next morning, when he arrives home, Roberto discovers that his girlfriend has been taken away, and he is outraged. When he realizes that there is nothing he can do to bring Justina back, he blames Daryl for losing the love of his life, because it was because of him and Carol that the couple returned to Solaz Delmare. Now that his girlfriend is no longer around, Roberto gives up on leaving Spain, and Daryl ends up losing a helper. With the help of Valentina and her team, Daryl and Carol manage to repair the boat, and in less than a week, they get it back up and running. When she finds out that Roberto will not be going with them to the United States, Valentina tries to get a ride for Cooper, since the young man used to live in California and has wanted to return to his homeland for years. Needing someone with sailing experience to cross the ocean, Daryl ends up agreeing to take him, but their plans are interrupted by the arrival of a group of rebels. After being shot in the chest by an arrow, Cooper doesn't survive, and Daryl realizes that his friends are in danger. He immediately grabs a weapon to fight back, and enlists the help of Carol and Valentina to eliminate the bandits. After being eliminated, Cooper rises as one of the zombies, and Daryl has no choice but to finish him off. That afternoon, a huge group of rebels approaches the gates of Solaz Delmare, and when he realizes that the city is about to be invaded, the mayor decides to arm the population so that everyone can defend their home. In addition to closing the gates and positioning himself on top of the walls to shoot at the enemies, Federico orders his men to release the zombies that were being held captive. This way, the population gains time to eliminate their adversaries while they try to get rid of the zombies. Upon hearing the sound of the bell, Daryl and Carol decide to return to the city to ensure the safety of Roberto and his father, as they were the ones who welcomed them during their entire stay in Solaz Delmare. During the battle, a jeep full of enemies breaks down the gates and invades the city. At that moment, Daryl and Carol also manage to enter and help the population fight the invaders. In addition to seeing their friends and family members being cowardly eliminated, the residents must face the pain of eliminating them a second time, as they have all returned as zombies. During the war, Federico ends up being wounded, but survives thanks to Carol's quick action. When most of his enemies have been defeated, Roberto goes to Alba's house to pick up the young woman and her mother, but on the way he discovers that the battle is far from over. Seeing the enemy army throwing zombies into the city, the young man runs to alert his companions, and chaos reigns once again. Even with their bodies on fire, the army of the zombies attacks the survivors, who unite to try to eliminate them before they spread throughout the city. While the population is busy trying to keep the situation under control, a new group of rebels invades the city and loots the houses. With the help of weapons, Daryl and his allies get rid of all the zombies and invaders, but they have to live with the pain of losing dozens of their fellow citizens. Outraged by everything that has happened in recent days, Roberto decides to speak out and wonders why El Alcazar has not moved to help the city. Every year, one of his young women is taken away with the promise that Solaz Delmare will receive support and protection from the monarchy, but when the population needed it most, no one came to help them. Upon hearing this, Federico states that without the weapons and ammunition he received from Guillermo, the residents would not have had the resources to defend themselves and would have been completely defeated. At that moment, the mayor discovers that one of the rebels has been captured alive and takes the opportunity to interrogate him. After asking a few questions, Federico discovers that the rebels know about El Alcazar, and for some reason, they are attacking all of the monarchy's allies. That night, Roberto steals a jeep and leaves town, so his father decides to go after him. In gratitude for everything Antonio has done for them, Daryl and Carol decide to accompany him, knowing that the young man went after Justina. After extracting all the information he could from the prisoner, Federico releases his enemy into a cage full of zombies and watches him being devoured. Meanwhile, Roberto, who has been captured by a gang, is hanging from a bridge with dozens of zombies trying to reach him. When the bandits are about to cut the rope, Daryl appears and eliminates them. Then, the survivor and his team start a battle against the zombies, striking all the monsters that walk towards them. After getting rid of all the zombies, Antonio manages to recover his son and feels relieved when he realizes that he is breathing. When he regains consciousness, the young man says that he broke into Guillermo's camp and managed to find Justina. Relieved, the young woman decided to run away with him, but the couple ended up being chased. In addition to seeing his girlfriend taken away again, Roberto was fiercely attacked by the gang and urgently needs medical attention. While Carol helps Antonio return to Solaz Delmare, Daryl takes his motorcycle and sets out on a journey to rescue Justina. On the way, he comes across a sick man who has had his eyes removed and decides to stop to help him. However, Daryl soon realizes that the man is completely insane and decides to leave him behind, as he has a long way to go. A few miles ahead, Daryl comes across a train car being dragged by zombies, and from inside it, a group of bikers emerges, intending to steal his motorcycle. In an attempt to escape, the hunter exchanges a few shots with the criminals and manages to hit one of their tanks. When he realizes that the chase will never end, Daryl decides to abandon his motorcycle and continues his journey walking alone through the desert. At dusk, he is found by a family of nomads and accepts their offer to take him in. After resting, Daryl discovers that these people had all their water stolen by the same bandits who took his motorcycle, and were condemned to live wandering in the desert because they have a severe skin disease. Other people call them limbo, as they live between life and perishment, but Amaya claims that it is possible to touch them without becoming infected. In an attempt to recover what was stolen from his people, Mateo offers his truck as a reward if Daryl manages to bring their water back. However, to carry out this mission, Daryl will need the vehicle, so the nomads decide to give him a vote of confidence and hand over the keys to the truck. When he sees the bikers approaching, Daryl lures them into a trap and enlists the help of Mateo and his people to take them down. While half the team eliminates their enemies with their own hands, the other half relies on Daryl's help to blow up the remaining bikers. With only 4 bullets, Daryl has no margin for error and pulls the trigger only when he is sure he will hit his target. When he realizes that all his companions have been defeated, the last biker decides to avenge them and rides toward his opponent with an axe in his hands. However, before the madman has a chance to hit him, Daryl strikes him with his sword, finishing off his enemy. The next step of the mission is to break into the train and free the zombies so they can devour those who imprisoned them. Seeing his men being devoured, Chofo loses control and starts shooting in all directions. Terrified, Blanca starts looking for a way out, but soon discovers that the car is surrounded by zombies. Seeing the monsters invading the train, Daryl tries to get rid of them with his blade, but soon realizes he is in trouble and retreats. During the battle, he and Chofo join forces to eliminate the zombies, and once all the monsters are immobilized, they decide to face each other. While his enemy tries to grab the gun, Daryl pushes him into the water and manages to eliminate him. He then shoots Chofo to ensure he won't come back as a zombie, and then takes the water back to the poor walkers. After saying goodbye to Mateo and his people, Daryl takes a new weapon and recovers his motorcycle to continue his journey to Barcelona. When he least expects it, the man realizes he is being followed by Paz, one of Solaz Delmare's greatest warriors, and the woman reveals that she went after him to help him rescue Justina. On the way, Paz decides to stop at a refugee village, but the pair ends up being greeted by a horde of zombies hiding in the bushes. Luckily, the villagers notice the attack and quickly open the gates to help them. While the women distract the monsters, the pair manages to enter the city and begins to interrogate them. At that moment, Paz recognizes her old friend Laya, and they run to embrace each other. Like Laya, several other young women from Solaz Delmare fled the city to avoid being taken as offerings to Elkazar, and set up their own village. After reuniting with some friends, Paz asks Laya for help in invading Barcelona and rescuing Justina. She promises that if she helps her, the woman will have the opportunity to eliminate Guillermo and end the monarchy that captures young people as offerings. That afternoon, the refugees invade the city and hide in strategic locations to ambush Guillermo's convoy. Amidst the exchange of gunfire, Daryl tries to open the cell where Justina and other young women are imprisoned, but is unable to break the lock. During the battle, Laya prepares to throw a bomb at the car where Guillermo is hiding, but is stopped by Paz, who knows that Elena, her former lover, is also in that vehicle. Immediately, the woman pushes her friend away, and the bomb ends up blowing a hole in the wall, allowing the horde of monsters outside to pass through. Desperate to eliminate the monarch, Laya approaches with her pistol, but ends up being shot and then devoured by the zombies. Unable to open the cell door, Daryl is forced to leave without Justina, and the young woman continues her journey to Elkazar. Hoping to enter the city to rescue the young woman, Daryl and Paz hitch a ride on a train carrying workers. This way, they manage to enter Elkazar and wear masks to cover their faces, like all the other workers. That night, the members of the royal court gather for a special dinner organized to welcome the young women who have just arrived. While they eat, the king and queen of Spain enjoy watching a puppet show starring zombies, whose movements are controlled by strings. After the performance, the young women who were sent as offerings from all the cities allied with Elkazar take the stage to be chosen by their future husbands, and Justina is the last to be chosen. If no nobleman was willing to marry her, the young woman would become a palace servant and face an even worse fate. While the curtains are closed, Daryl breaks into the backstage area and cuts all the strings that kept the zombies under control. At that moment, the monsters begin their attack and start devouring the nobles scattered throughout the hall. During the attack, while everyone is panicking and trying to escape, Daryl goes after Justina, and Paz takes the opportunity to find Elena. Seeing the woman she loves right in front of her, Elena decides to pack her bags to flee with her son, but Paz ends up being captured by Guillermo. When her husband is about to eliminate her, Elena decides to act and uses a sword to stab the man in the back. Upon discovering that Justina is planning to escape, her fiancé attacks her, but the young woman is saved by Daryl. After eliminating the young man, Daryl frees all the other young women who were taken as offerings and makes his way to the gate, as there are guards and zombies scattered throughout the city. After crossing the gate, Daryl and Paz meet, and the woman decides to take the rescued girls to the refugee camp. After saying goodbye to her friends, Justina gets on the motorcycle and enjoys the trip back to Solaz Delmare. Believing that Carol and Roberto will be at the lighthouse awaiting her arrival, Daryl takes the young woman straight there, but is taken by surprise by Frederico's guards. With Valentina's help, the hunter manages to immobilize them and uses one of his enemy's weapons to eliminate them. Once the danger is neutralized, Daryl asks what happened and discovers that Carol and her allies have been captured by Frederico and accused of treason. After being caught trying to flee the city, Antonio and Carol are released into the courtyard, where Roberto is chained. Frederico then orders his men to release the zombies, and the trio is surrounded by the monsters. In an attempt to keep those creatures away from his son, Antonio decides to fight, and Carol joins him. During the battle, they are saved by Daryl, who went there to rescue his friends. During the shootout, Justina appears and invades the city. Seeing the zombies heading towards his niece, Frederico orders his men to protect her, and the young woman unmasks her uncle in front of all the residents. After being discredited in front of all those who supported him as mayor, Frederico is sent to the dungeon, but manages to convince his mother to release him hours later. Once free, the mayor decides to go after Daryl for revenge, believing him to be responsible for everything that has happened. However, before he has a chance to pull the trigger, Carol and Antonio attack him and manage to immobilize him. Although no one was injured, the shots set the boat on fire, destroying any hope Daryl and Carol had of returning home. So what did you think of this series? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more series recaps. See you next time.